Who's moving up in the Dynasty rankings? Find out right now on Fantasy Football Today in 5. And welcome, everybody. Thanks for the last time in a long time, hopefully. I don't mind doing it, but hopefully Chris is back soon. I'm Adam Azer, filling in for Chris Towers, your awesome host of FFT in 5. And here's Heath Cummings, our Dynasty expert, who's got his updated rankings, and he's going to give us a riser at each position. So give me a quarterback on the rise in Dynasty.
Definitely the biggest riser of the last couple of months has been Sam Howell. Just because the Washington Commanders released Carson Wentz, they've publicly indicated that they plan on giving Sam Howell a chance to start, much like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But I look at the situation. I think you look at what Howell did his last year in college with 800 rushing yards and 11 rushing touchdowns. That gives you some hope. You look at the combination of Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, a very talented young wide receiver duo. That gives you some hope. And then you add arguably the most successful offensive coordinator in the last half a decade in Eric Bieniemy. If everything goes right, you could be looking at Sam Howell as a borderline top 12 quarterback.
Yeah, Sam Howell, by the way, 2020, his sophomore season at UNC, really looked like he was going to be a first-round pick. He had a much better year, and then in his junior year just was really just bad by his standards. So if he can just recapture some of that magic, he was a much better prospect once upon a time. How about a riser at running back?
This time of year for running backs, it's more fear and loathing than risers. There's so many free agents. There's so many guys who we have a real concern about. I mean, they are under contract, like Joe Mixon and Dalvin Cook. We don't know if their team's going to keep them under contract. So there are not a lot of guys who have risen. In my top 30, I can't find a guy who's risen more than 2 spots in the rankings. But I'll tell you a guy who has a couple of guys who are falling with just concerns about this offseason. And that is those 26 and 27-year-old running backs, Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, and even a couple of younger guys, David Montgomery, Miles Sanders. There's going to be a big name or two, a guy who was ranked in the top 35 at running back, who when we get to July or August, we're like, oh no, he just doesn't have any value left anymore.
And also, in Buffalo, I wonder how you feel about James Cook with their GM, Brandon Beane, talking about how he's excited to get James Cook more touches.
He did go up 2 spots. I was already really high on him. I had him at RB20 last month. So he's RB18 for me right now. I think he's going to be a starting running back in the NFL for the next 3 years.
All right, wide receiver riser.
Yeah. He transitioned to that very, very quickly.
Wide receiver is this position, just so y'all know, where they run, they're usually lying away from the quarterback toward the outside. They run, they catch the ball, they do some crazy. They're allowed to run after they catch the ball, and they try to score touchdowns. And we want to know which of those players is actually moving up in the rankings. Rankings are a numbered order of preference and how we want to draft these guys or evaluate them.
A lot of the second year guys got a boost when I went through the projections process and really kind of gave them that year 2 boost based on who I thought they were. I'm getting pretty excited about that entire class. I moved Treylon Burks up to wide receiver 17 now. Christian Watson inside the top 20, George Pickens inside the top 25, Jahan Dotson at wide receiver 26. Now some veterans falling behind them. Chris Godwin, a pretty big faller when I factored in the projections and him playing with Kyle Trask. But there's a lot of, and even I think if you go down further, like the Sky Moore type range, those guys are good buys right now. They were late first round picks in rookie drafts last year. Could probably get them for a second pretty easily.
Let me tell everybody about the tight end position. The tight end position is kind of an interesting hybrid between offensive lineman and receiver.
Yeah, you don't need to talk that much.
Okay, who's a riser at tight end?
Yeah, it's Chigo Okonkwo. There's even been a little bit of buzz since we got to the offseason about how they want to get him more involved in the things that he's planning on approving as a pass catcher. I kind of expect as of right now that Treylon Burks will be the number 1 wide receiver in that offense and Okonkwo might be the number 2 pass catcher in that offense. I do still have some reservations because in Tennessee, they've used multiple tight ends way too often. They throw their tight ends a bunch, but they always throw to 3 or 4 of them. So I'm not sure Okonkwo can be a surefire starter, but for a guy who was absolutely free last year, now inside the top 20 tight ends, and if he gets off to a good start, might jump into the top 12.
All right, thanks very much to Heath Cummings. Tomorrow, Chris will be back to give you some more awesome fantasy football insight. I'm Adam Azer. Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today in 5.